John thought $1 million would solve everything. Instead, it gave him a new problem. If he tried to live off that directly, 15 years from now, it would be back to zero. That pushed him into a new mission. How do I turn this into income that lasts and find a way to turn that lump sum into a steady paycheck he can live on without watching his balance shrink? That's when John discovered REITs. In this video, we'll walk through what happens when John puts that full million into the 7 best REITs on the market. From safe and steady to high yield and high risk. You'll see the annual income, the lifestyle changes, and the hidden trade-offs behind each one. And at the end, I'll show you a REIT that pays John over $11,000 a month. John never pictured himself inheriting $1 million in his 30s. If anything, he expected more years of the same cycle, working a job that drained him, budgeting every decision, and trying not to think too hard about the kind of life he actually wanted. So when that money arrived, it didn't feel like a windfall, it felt like a pause, a moment quiet enough for him to ask a question he'd never had room to ask. Could this buy back my time? He doesn't want a mansion or a sports car, he just wants freedom. Slow mornings, space to think, time to build something of his own. And the idea that keeps pulling him in is passive income. Money that shows up without meetings, alarms, or permission. Real estate feels right, but not the landlord kind. REITs, real estate investment trusts. Clean, simple, and built around steady dividends. So John sets up an experiment. He'll put the entire million into 7 REITs, starting with the safest and climbing all the way to the highest yielding name on the list. He wants to see what each step actually feels like, how much freedom each one buys, how much stress it removes, and where the real balance between income and stability actually is. And that journey starts at the safest place he can think of, Prologis. John starts with Prologis because it feels like the closest thing to certainty. Warehouses, logistics hubs, distribution centers. None of it's flashy, but all of it is essential. The world keeps buying, shipping, and storing things, whether the market is booming or stumbling, and John likes the idea of anchoring his $1 million to something stable enough so that he can relax, at least a little. But after a few weeks, he starts to notice the limits of this kind of stability. Prologis is consistent, but its 3.26% dividend yield means the income comes in small, steady doses. When he finally sits down to run the numbers, the reality becomes clearer. That 3.26% turns his $1 million into $32,600 per year, about $2,717 a month. It's steady, predictable money, enough for rent on a modest apartment, groceries, utilities, basic insurance, and a few small extras if he's careful. But that's where the ceiling lands. There's no room for unexpected expenses, no space for weekend trips, and no real sense of breathing room. The stability is solid, but the lifestyle it supports is tight. He could survive on this, absolutely, but only with caution, only with planning, only with the kind of discipline that keeps you safe, but never really free. And that's when it clicks for John. Safety isn't the same as freedom. Safety stops the fall, but it doesn't lift him anywhere. So he decides to move one step up the ladder, still safe, still steady, but with a little more room to live. That next step takes him straight to a REIT that nudges the yield upward without straying too far from stability. Agree Realty. Agree Realty operates in a corner of real estate most people overlook. It owns single-tenant retail properties, places like pharmacies, grocery stores, auto shops, and essential businesses that people rely on every week. Long-term leases, predictable tenants, and steady rent checks. Nothing wild, nothing fragile, just consistent, everyday commerce. That's what draws John in. After living inside the tight margins of Prologis, he wants something that still feels safe but gives him a little more room to live. And with a 4.27% dividend yield, ADC offers exactly that, stability with a noticeable bump in income. That 4.27% turns his $1 million into $42,700 a year, or roughly $3,558 every month. It's not dramatic, but it's enough to lift his life from barely flexible to comfortably manageable. And the impact shows up almost immediately. He's not splurging, but he's not tense anymore either. He can accept a dinner invite without checking his bank app. He can replace something worn out without hesitating. His days feel lighter, not because he's rich, but because he no longer feels trapped by every small financial choice. That ease makes him realize something important. Progress doesn't need to be extreme to matter. Even a modest increase in yield can noticeably improve his life. And that realization sparks a new curiosity. If this level of income creates this much space, what would the next step feel like? He's not chasing risk, but he's ready for a REIT that offers a little more income while staying firmly in the realm of stability. That's when his attention lands on a sector that thrives through every economic cycle: self-storage. And that's why his next move is straight into extra space storage. Extra space storage operates in one of the most quietly reliable parts of real estate: self-storage. People move, downsize, change jobs, go through transitions. Life keeps shifting, and storage units fill up accordingly. Demand rises in good times and bad, which makes the business feel grounded and practical. That's exactly what appeals to John. It's predictable, steady. Extra space storage pays around a 4.91% dividend yield. It offers the next meaningful step up without drifting into anything unstable. That 4.91% turns John's $1 million into $49,100 a year, or roughly $4,092 every month. This isn't survival money. This is comfort money, the kind that smooths out daily life. He buys groceries without doing mental math. He meets friends for coffee without hesitation. He's not splurging or living extravagantly, but the tightness he carried for years is finally gone. This is the kind of income that makes life feel manageable, predictable, even pleasant. For the first time, John feels like he's allowed to breathe without consequences. But with that comfort comes a new kind of question. If life feels this smooth at just under $4,100 a month, what would it feel like at 5 or 6, even 7? That curiosity pushes him to look at the next REIT on the ladder, something still stable, still dependable, but with a unique advantage he hasn't experienced yet: monthly income. And that leads him straight to Realty Income, the REIT known for turning dividends into a monthly paycheck like a job income. John has heard people call Realty Income the monthly dividend company, but he never really understood why that mattered until now. Realty Income's entire business model is built around stability. It focuses on single-tenant commercial buildings leased to essential businesses people rely on every day: pharmacies, dollar stores, grocery chains, fitness centers, convenience shops, and major national brands like Walgreens and FedEx. These tenants operate in good economies and bad, so the rent rarely misses a beat. What makes O especially reliable is its triple net lease structure, where tenants pay for taxes, insurance, and maintenance instead of the company. That keeps expenses low, cash flow steady, and dividends highly predictable. And unlike most REITs, Realty Income pays investors every month, earning its nickname the Monthly Dividend Company. That monthly structure is what pulls John in. After the steady comfort of EXR, he wants income that feels smoother, more consistent, more like an actual paycheck. And with a 5.71% dividend yield, Realty Income offers both stability and a meaningful bump in cash flow. With a 5.71% yield, Realty Income pays John about $57,100 per year, which works out to roughly $4,758 every month. And the monthly schedule makes it feel different. He's not budgeting in big jumps quarter to quarter anymore. He's living from a place of flow. Bills, food, subscriptions, small joys, all smoothed out by a steady drip of income instead of waiting for large chunks to land every few months. He can finally say yes to things without feeling like he's borrowing from his future. For the first time, the idea of not working doesn't feel like a fantasy, it feels like something that could actually happen if he wanted it to. So, this level of income gives John stability. But the next few steps bring something different: acceleration. Each REIT pays more than the last, and in the end, I'll show you a REIT that pays John over $11,000 a month. So monthly paychecks from realty income make John's life easier, but ease does something tricky too. It opens the door to bigger questions. If $4,758 per month feels good, what would happen if he goes for a little more yield? What would life look like if his income didn't just support him comfortably, but actually gave him room to stretch, explore, and grow? That curiosity leads him to a REIT with a louder personality, higher yield, and a whole different kind of tenant base: gaming and leisure properties. John doesn't expect gaming and leisure properties to feel as different as it does. On paper, it's just another REIT, another box on his spreadsheet, another ticker symbol with a yield attached. But the moment he reads what GLPI actually owns, he knows it's not just a regular REIT. Gaming and leisure properties own something unlike any REIT John has tried so far: casinos and entertainment properties. These buildings aren't just places where people gamble, they're destinations built around restaurants, hotels, shows, and weekend escape energy. What makes GLPI interesting is its business model: long-term leases with major casino operators where tenants cover most operating expenses. It's surprisingly steady for an industry most people assume is chaotic. That contrast is exactly what pulls John in. After the predictable flow of realty income, GLPI feels bolder, still structured, still dependable, but with a personality, a little louder, a little more alive. And with a 6.99% dividend yield, the income boost is the largest he's seen so far. With that yield, John's $1 million would pay him about $69,900 a year, or about $5,825 every month. This is the first time he feels genuinely lifted out of the work-earn-worry cycle. Not because he's suddenly wealthy, but because life finally has options. Weekend trips become easy to plan instead of something he has to save up for. A spontaneous dinner with friends doesn't derail his budget. He can buy books without waiting for a sale, upgrade a phone that he's outgrown, or take a short vacation just because he needs a rest. Even errands feel different. He's not choosing the cheapest version of everything anymore. For the first time in years, he feels like he can participate in life instead of tiptoeing around it. But that new feeling brings some temptation. If a 6.99% yield can give him that much freedom, what happens if he goes over 8% or even close to 9%? What would life look like with that return? GLPI gives him the most freedom he's felt in his adult life, but it also introduces the awareness that when life improves fast, it's easy to wonder how steady the ground beneath you really is. That curiosity and that tension push him to take one more step. Not a reckless leap, but a confident move toward a higher-yielding REIT built around diverse income-generating properties. CTO Realty Growth. CTO Realty Growth immediately stands out once John digs into what it actually owns. Unlike giant REITs with thousands of properties, CTO focuses on high-quality, community-centered commercial real estate. Open-air shopping centers, mixed-use developments, grocery-anchored retail, essential services, and office spaces in fast-growing markets across the Southeast and Sunbelt. These are properties with real foot traffic and steady local activity. They're practical, busy, and rooted in everyday life. CTO also uses a strategy that mixes property ownership with private real estate lending, which lets it earn interest income on top of rent. That extra layer helps boost its dividend, but it also adds a bit more complexity. And like most mid-size REITs, CTO carries more leverage than the safer names John started with. Not dangerously high, but enough that interest rates and borrowing costs matter. If the commercial real estate market slows or debt becomes expensive, CTO can feel the pressure faster than a giant like Prologis. Still, that blend of property income and financing income is what allows CTO to offer a higher 8.73% yield, placing it in that sweet spot between traditional safety and higher yield ambition. And with an 8.73% dividend yield, the jump feels meaningful. It would pay about $87,300 per year, which comes out to roughly $7,275 every month. At this amount, John starts noticing changes that go deeper than dinners out or weekend trips. This income opens up decisions he didn't even allow himself to consider before. He starts looking at neighborhoods he once thought were too nice. He thinks about taking a month to travel, not just a weekend. He looks at classes he's always wanted to take, photography, cooking, even a part-time course at a community college, because now he has the time and the money to explore them. He realizes he can upgrade his apartment to something brighter and quieter. He can invest in better tools for a hobby instead of settling for the budget version. He can plan a long-term move or even take unpaid time to build something of his own. For once, he has the feeling that he can design his life instead of simply fitting himself into whatever his budget allows. For the first time, he isn't choosing between what he wants and what he can afford. The two finally overlap. But the more he sits with that feeling, the more another thought creeps in. CTO comes with more volatility than the REITs before it. He notices price swings he didn't see with Prologis or Realty Income. Not enough to scare him, but enough to remind him that freedom always has a cost, and that realization plants a new question. Can REITs pay him over $10,000 a month? That curiosity leads him to the final, boldest step on his list. A REIT with a yield that leaves every other one behind. A REIT offering the highest income and the highest risk. Arbor Realty Trust. So John has been climbing this ladder one careful step at a time, but Arbor Realty Trust isn't just a step, it is a jump. ABR doesn't own storage units or grocery-anchored shopping centers. Instead, it operates in the intense, fast-moving world of real estate finance. It provides loans to developers, finances property deals, and earns income through interest, fees, and complex lending structures. When the economy is steady, this model produces a huge cash flow. When it wobbles, things can turn fast. That's why ABR's dividend yield sits at a staggering 13.22%. Double the risk, double the reward. With this yield, Arbor Realty pays him $132,200 a year, or about $11,017 every month. A five-figure income every single month without a job. And suddenly, the world opens all at once, not in small ways, in life-defining ways. John could move to a different city without worrying about finding work first. He could spend 3 months abroad, exploring new countries while the income keeps flowing. He could dedicate real time to writing a book, starting a channel, building a startup, or learning a craft that he's always pushed aside. He could support his family, fund a sibling's education, or help his parents retire sooner. He could structure his entire year around what he wants to create, not what he needs to earn. It's the first time on this journey that John feels freedom and fragility at the same time, because that high income is a double-edged sword. But for now, ABR is still holding the line. Want more value? Click the video on the screen to find the best index fund that can turn a $100,000 investment into a $12 million portfolio.